All right. Hello, third grade families, and welcome to our curriculum night, virtual version 2020. Can someone just pop into the chat that you can see us and hear us before we get started? Sometimes this takes a minute.
You know what? You're gonna go.
All right. I'm not getting any comments in there. Oh, here we go. Great. Awesome. We can be seen and heard. Perfect. So again, welcome. I'm Sue Balboni, and I am your child's principal. And this is your third grade team. Feel free to pop in any questions that come up. Mrs. Brothers just joined us virtually, and she says she sees the dream team. And that is an accurate description of this team. But I'm going to hand it over to them, and they're going to fill you all in about third grade.
All right. Well, we are the third grade team. We've been together for 10 years plus. So we have a very family-like relationship, and we make things work. We're rolling with it last year and this year. We're just keep plugging. Mr. Barter, I don't know if you want to go to that first slide. Awesome. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to tell you all a little bit about what our schedule is like when we are in the building live. So there's two different schedules posted on the slide that you're seeing right now. One is cohort B, and these are both for my classroom specifically. And the other one is cohort A. The only difference, there's two differences between these two schedules, and it's really just the time for our second mask, snack, and recess break, and then our content, social studies, and science. So we start our day, as you guys know, with our community meeting, and that's about 15 to 20 minutes. And then from there, we dive straight into writing for about an hour. We have a mask and snack break from 10 to 10:15, and then we jump into reading when we come back in until our second mask and snack break. And we have combined that with, we have a 15-minute mask and snack break, and then we have 15 minutes of recess. So we have about a half an hour total outside, which is great for the kids. They get some fresh air. They have some mask time. They do wear masks during recess, which I'm sure many of you have heard. And then when we come back in, we have about an hour for math, and then depending on the day or the week, we do science and social studies, or in our classroom, we do science and social studies. With the other teachers, the schedule might be rearranged a little bit, but the blocks are exactly the same. Mrs. Riley does math first, so there might be some little differences like that. But other than that, it's very similar. A couple things to keep in mind this year, as I'm sure last year, we're all plugging along, trying to figure it out as best we can as teachers and parents and students. Growth mindset is huge. It is okay for kids to struggle. Some of this stuff is going to be hard, especially as we're teaching new topics and teaching new things. And that's okay. That's part of what we're doing. So just keep that in mind. I know it's always hard, especially as a parent, to watch your child struggle, but it's important that they do, and that we don't always jump in to save them. Obviously, if things are excessive, let us know. We're always receptive to feedback like that. The other piece is videos that were posted in the reading and the writing content. You can always go back and re-watch them in our Google Classroom. So if your child is accessing a video and they didn't really understand it the first time, or if they're having trouble with the concept, suggest that they go back and re-watch, because we've done that in the classroom and it's something that can really help. It can really benefit the kiddos. And then the last little bit before I turn it over to Miss Bell is that Zern, we've discovered, is about, and Mr. Barter's kids have some experience with Zern, is about 30 minutes plus or minus for a complete lesson. And I believe there are 6 total activities when you do the 2 warm-ups in a full Zern lesson. So in order to complete that whole thing, they have to do all 6 activities. And starting next week, we will be providing the worksheets for the virtual week that go along with that, with those lessons that we're assigning. So those will be in the packet to go home with the students each week. All right, and now the lovely Miss Bell is up.
Thank you. So I just wanted to introduce myself as Miss Bell. I'm the Learning Center teacher working with 3rd grade this year. I've worked in 3rd grade. I've been at Memorial for 12 years, and I think almost all of those have been in 3rd grade. On A weeks, I am able to go into one of the classrooms and work with the students that I work with there. On B weeks, I work with the select number of students that are in school for 2 weeks, and I work in the cafeteria with some other staff, and we follow the schedule. We have our specials remotely. Everybody joins in the specials. We join in our community meeting from a remote spot. We work through the work from the classroom teachers. I work closely with the classroom teachers. And as we're figuring everything out, I'm figuring out Zern too. We have a little unique, I can call down to Ms. Weiler and say, hey, we need a little help on this one, or hey, I see we got to update this. So we really are working through it together and really trying to get the best stuff out there for you. Also in B weeks, if your student receives academic services, I do a small group with them on B week as well. So we have busy days, but it's great to see the kids, and I can tell that they're really happy to be in school. I'll be hanging on here a few more minutes. I split my time between 2nd grade and 3rd grade. If you have questions for me specifically, you can email me at cabell@natickps.org, or be in touch with your student's classroom teacher or their caseworker. Thank you.
All right, this is me. So I'm going to talk about math. First thing I'm going to talk about is our investigations curriculum, and then I'm just going to touch on some of the online resources we're using for our remote weeks, because I think a lot of them are really useful for the kids, and just to kind of give you an overview of kind of how we're using them and what the plan is for that. So the big concepts this year in 3rd grade, especially, we want to address all the math standards, but multiplication and division is huge this year. We really jump into that. And we want the kids to understand conceptually what multiplication and division is, as opposed to just procedural. Same thing with addition and subtraction. And when students come in and they're able to do the regrouping borrowing strategy, a lot of us say, hey, who taught you that? Because we know that a parent did, and that's fine. But we also know that we want them to understand conceptually how, like, the difference between 2 numbers and things like that. So one thing we always want parents to think about is, and I'll get into this with the Freckle and some of the Zern assignments too, is we want to know what the kids are able to do. We want them to understand math in a different way, as opposed to just going through the procedure of, like borrowing, crossing out, and finding the difference. We really want them to kind of think about it differently. And one thing that's super important with our investigations curriculum, it's very language-based, and there's a lot of problem solving. So it's not just, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, just being able to solve those problems. It's really reading story problems, being able to pull out those key words so they understand what they have to do, thinking about how to attack a problem, different ways to go about it. There isn't a really right or wrong way. If we see students continually doing the wrong way, we'll give them some support that way, but we want them to think about how they're going to go about it. And I know I am surprised often by how kids go about things and what their thinking is. And every year it's always like, wow, I didn't even think of that myself. So we want them to be able to kind of construct their own thinking and work through their process, just kind of gaining some strength in math and really working towards, and this is a big year. They're really taking on a lot of things. Fractions is huge this year. I know last year when we had to go out, it was tough to teach fractions remotely because we usually use a lot of manipulatives and things like that. So we're working on it. We're going to find the best way to do that. So just moving on to some of our online resources. Reflex is our fact practice app and game that we use. They should be doing it every day on their remote week. It takes about 15, 20 minutes a day to really master those facts. They want to have those down. They want to be automatic and accurate with those, because once they have those down, they're able to do the more advanced math that we're going to be doing this year, especially with the multiplication division. And Reflex is great because it's all about fact families. When they're learning multiplication, they're learning division at the same time, and they see the relationship between those two operations. Same thing with addition and subtraction. So every single day when they're home remote, and I suggest, and we're all kind of thinking about it today, that they should be doing it when they're in school too. It takes 15, 20 minutes a day when they're actually in the building. Reflex, reflex, reflex. Once they master them, everything else comes easier because they're not stuck on those facts that they should have. They're really thinking about math in a deeper kind of way. So it's important that they do that every single night. Pearson Realize is another resource we use. That is aligned with our investigations curriculum. It has all the lessons that we do in class, and we can kind of push some of those out. There's teaching videos and things like that. And so there are some activities that the kids will have to go in through Pearson Realize to kind of access our investigations curriculum. And you also go into Realize when you do Words Their Way, which is our word study program as well. Freckle is another resource we've used. And it's great because it's short little 10-question lessons, and you can really target to either a specific skill or a specific level for a student. I know at the beginning of the year, I had sent home like it's called it's a placement kind of assessment to kind of see what kids know. And yes, you want to support your kid at home, but you also don't want to help them too much because we want to know what they can do and what they can't do, because that gives us data and information about how we can support them. If parents or older siblings are helping them with us, then we think they might understand it. But then when it comes time for them to be able to show us that, it might not be the case. So support, but don't give answers. That's basically the best thing we can say. So Zern is the new thing we're using this year. And Mrs. Weiler had mentioned that my own personal children that I own, my kids at home, so they used Zern in the spring last year. And I thought it was great. It's really going to align with our investigations curriculum because it kind of takes them step by step through the different skills, and it hits all the different standards we're trying to hit. And like Mrs. Weiler was explaining, it's, there's a lot of components to it. And it should take 20 to 30 minutes a day for them to complete all those. And each lesson builds on the one before. So I think it's going to be a great tool for the kids to use at home. I think it's just going to support our investigations curriculum. And the last one is Prodigy, which kids have played in the past, and we can assign things through Prodigy, but it's just another way for kids to explore different math skills. And again, if they don't know how to do it, that's a good thing, because it's not going to give them those questions in the future. It's really going to work at their level and let them progress that way. So we all love teaching math, so I think the kids are going to get a lot out of it this year. And we'll move on to reading and writing.
Hi, that's my slide. So reading and writing is a large chunk of your child's day. As you saw in the schedule Ms. Weiler gave us, that writing is an hour in the morning and reading is another hour during the day. So 2 hours of their day with us is spent reading and writing. And that should be almost equal to how much time they're spending at home when they're with you. Our writing units are narrative, which is telling a story; informational, where you're teaching someone about something; and persuasive, where they're persuading you. So you'll get like lots of notes about why their bedtime should be later, or why they deserve a pet, or why they should get a phone. And they will use their persuasive skills to try to convince you of many things. And we apologize, but it is good practice. And then we do baby literary essays, where we are responding to literature, and we end the year with an informational unit where we're using our research to teach people about information. Our reading units really go hand in hand with our writing units. We start off with fiction, where we're building a reading life, and then we move into informational types of reading. Then we move into my favorite unit, which is mystery reading, and many students get very hooked on all the different types of mystery books out there. Then we move back into fiction for character studies, and we end the year, like I said, with doing research in research clubs and using that information to teach about information, to teach about our writing. Next slide, Mr. Barter. So our workshop model looks like that graph you see on the side. Basically, we have a small mini lesson in the beginning, and then most of our time is spent practicing independently. And that's the time where all of us teachers are meeting with your child and coaching them and trying to find out their goals and help them reach their benchmarks. And then at the end, we do a share. And you can model your time like that too. We send out the videos. You can you can show the mini lesson. You can let them practice it for a good chunk of time. And that's where we're going to see a lot of the struggle, especially with some of our reluctant writers. There will be struggle there, and they can figure out how to move through it. And then at the end, you can have them share a little bit with you, but you don't have to sit there by their side during that whole time. Some things that I wanted to tell you about that you can do at home is just set up a good working spot and time for them to get their work done. Setting goals and working towards them. We would do that in the classroom in both reading and in writing. At the very beginning, we say, what is your goal today? What are you going to work on? And really giving them that power over their learning. And practice, and more practice. I always say to them, how do you become a better reader or writer? It's doing more of it. So the more practice they get, the better they get at it. When they are stuck, there's a couple things that they can do. At the beginning of every unit, we do teach them in writing where to get ideas. So you can go back. Many of us in the back of our notebooks have put places that they can refer back to about lessons we've already done to try to help them get unstuck. And then reading comprehension checks are something that we've started to teach them about. And word solving charts are coming this week to some of our students. So all of that stuff in their toolkit of things they can use. And I tell my students, and I hope you repeat at home, that it's okay to make mistakes, and mistakes are an opportunity to learn, and just use those to help you set new goals for the next day and work from there. That's it.
All right. So I'm Kathy Riley. It's nice to see all of you. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our science and social studies curriculum. So we have 3 science units this year. The science units on magnetism and weather and climate both include an engineer design project. So in the magnetism unit, students will be looking at how we can use the properties of magnetism to solve a problem. And in the weather and climate unit, they'll be doing a lot of nonfiction reading. And they're going to be looking at how humans interact with weather, looking at the differences between how weather and climate are related. And then again, we're going to go back to the engineering design process, and we're going to look at how you can design a solution to a weather-related problem. And then our last science unit is meshed with our reading, and we're doing a research club unit in reading where students will be doing a lot of reading about pollinators, looking at how humans affect other species, and they'll be doing a culminating project on pollination and thinking about how we can help pollinators to survive. So those are our 3 science units. And then social studies, we've actually already started. So one of the best things about social studies is living in Massachusetts. There is so much history right in our backyard, and students can visit Plymouth Plantation. They can walk the Freedom Trail. There's a historical museum right here in Natick. It's in the basement of the Bacon Free Library. So we really encourage families to take advantage of that. My team knows how much I love the Freedom Trail. I made my husband go on the Freedom Trail with me this summer for the very first time, for him, not for me, of course. And I just think it's a lot of fun. And kids love when they learn something in school and then they can actually go out and experience it in the world. So we're starting with a study of Pilgrims and Wampanoags, looking at the daily life of both cultures, how they, their shelter, their food, clothing, what kind of work they did, what kind of government they had. And then we'll be looking at why the Pilgrims left Europe and traveled to the New World. What were the reasons? What were some of the hardships that they experienced, both in the journey to the New World and then establishing that first colony? And we'll be looking at the interactions between the Wampanoags and the Pilgrims. And then we'll move on to Natick history and looking at how Natick was established as a town. And again, the kids love this unit. They love learning about the town that they live in. And we'll be looking at the relationship, again, between the native peoples here and the settlers. And then the last social studies unit is around the American Revolution. So we'll be talking about what were the factors that caused the colonists to revolt, and what were some of the major factors, including taxation, the Boston Tea Party, the Boston Massacre. We'll be looking at how and why the Declaration of Independence was written. And students will be doing a lot of nonfiction reading, again, looking at biographies, and they'll have some kind of biography project around a major historical figure from the American Revolution.
Oh, so here's my classroom. You can see it's a little bit different than what you probably used to. This is Riley. There we go. All right.
Yay.
All right, awesome. So if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask them. We're here to help clarify anything that you have questions about. I'm checking my phone too, because some of the messages have popped up there on my YouTube channel. Nope, nothing. Okay. All right, give you a second. All right, so we're going to hold off for 1 second. We'll just take our time. One thing that I would recommend is that you make sure that you're sending your kids dressed to be out in the weather, because we do go out. Today it was drizzling and we were outside. The more fresh air and time we can spend outside, we want to do. Okay, so here's a question. If a child is absent during their school week, should they follow what the online class is doing?
I can take that one. So if a child is absent during the school week, we, just like they would have been absent during normal times, we're not going to send additional work home with them until maybe the next day. And anything that's on our website is available to them, but they're not actually part of the other cohort. So if they went to those specials, it would change how they experience the next special, because that specialist is working with, say, art, has a project that they start on one day and do the second day. And if your child just pops into that, they won't possibly be in that same spot.
And yeah, and it would be the same lesson that they would experience the next week, because both groups are getting similar lessons, the same lessons. So,
and the online, the remote students are not having the same day as the live students. Like, I didn't teach a lesson in class today that the remote students were doing at home. They're not aligned like that. Each week we make a packet and pick lessons that are fit for that class.
All right. Are there going to be any classroom events at all this year, and are parent room reps needed?
I think that's yours.
So unfortunately, no, there will be no events where we can welcome parents in. And because of that, there is no need for parent room reps. That said, if parents wanted to, get together virtually to talk about, I know most of the parents typically, get together around holiday gifts or classroom gifts. So I can absolutely help support that situation. But again, we're not, if any of you have walked into our building, we're asking you to stay in the lobby. We can't try not to contaminate classrooms with additional folks entering classrooms. All right, does the homework come back for us to see it?
So I'll answer that. So one of the things that we've been doing is posting a lot of information and assignments on Google Classroom, and we are looking at that. A lot of the remote learning work is independent practice. And it's the same kind of independent practice we do in the classroom. So for example, if they're writing a story in their notebook, they're writing similar stories in their notebooks that are at school, or some of the kids are taking their notebooks back and forth. So it's not really something that we would be grading and returning. It's just more independent practice of what they're doing in the classroom. Some of the things will hang up on a bulletin board if they write a book review, or they might have a writing piece that we would display.
All right. Have they covered everything they were supposed to in terms of Common Core last year? Do you want me to take that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did a pretty thorough analysis based on guidance that was provided to us by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education at every grade level in terms of what concepts and skills we had already covered and which ones needed to be covered. And we did hit all of those targets by the end of last year. That said, our curriculum spirals. So whatever concepts we're hitting in second grade, we hit them again in third grade, but we go into greater depth. So every year we go more in depth with the concepts and the skills, and we expect greater things from the students and more complex thinking from the students. So yes, we've covered them. There are a few spots where we maybe didn't hit every particular, foundations phonics piece, but we add in word study in third grade as we transition from foundations. So we're hitting those concepts as well. And that's why the conferencing that teachers are doing with your children is so valuable, as well as why the independent work that they're bringing into us is so valuable, because it allows us to determine what kids still need, and we can target small group or individual instruction to those particular concepts. So that was a long answer for a quick question of yes, we've hit them, but we will continue to hit them again. Do you know when students will be able to access books from the school library? I'm happy to take that. We are going to do a similar format as the Morse Institute Library, where students can go online to the Destiny catalog and request books from our school library. If we don't have them in our building, then we can request them from other buildings or from the Morse Institute Library. And those, once students have requested them, we'll check them out to them and deliver them to a bin that we have outside of every classroom, and they'll be bagged up for safety purposes. We were waiting for some return boxes to be delivered so that students could very safely return books that they had at home. We're still waiting for those, so we're doing a workaround.
They're here.
Yeah.
Oh, they are here?
Blue boxes? Yeah.
Big blue boxes.
Oh.
Okay.
I did not see them today when I was there, but awesome. So that is happening. We do have to do a 48-hour quarantine of every book that comes in. So once it's returned to us, we quarantine it for 48 hours, and then Mrs. Dixon is able to check that back out. So that process will be starting very shortly. She's very anxious to get books into the hands of kids. So stay tuned, and that will be happening. Where are the idea generators again and the toolkit for writing?
We are putting them in the back of the writer's notebook. So if their notebook looks like this, if you flip it over and go straight from the back, that's where we've been gluing in the idea generator charts and any other anchor charts.
When is their remote work checked and reviewed with them?
So we generally collect, sorry, Mrs. Mann. We generally collect the folders and the packets at the beginning of the week, and we'll look through them. And if there's, things that stand out to us that we'd like to check in with a particular student on, we'll pull the student and chat with them about something if it stands out. So it's really throughout the week. I wouldn't say there's a particular time when things are reviewed or gone over with the students, but it's pretty much on an individual student basis if something really needs to be reviewed or checked in on.
I think the main thing too is, if things are coming incomplete, then that's something we definitely check in with the kids about, especially with some of the online assignments as well. because with all the online tools we use, we can kind of see who's doing what and who's not. And we tell the kids that too. If they're missing assignments, we follow up with them on those things. And Freckle is just up and running this week. And some kids were having difficulty getting in, so we're kind of figuring out some of those kinks. But we can see their progress and see how they're doing. I always tell the kids, like, I know if you're doing your reflex or not. It tells me. So that's something important too, to kind of make sure the kids are doing those and following up with those assignments at home.
You meant Zern, Mr. Barter. Sorry.
What's that?
You meant Zern.
Freckle? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
What should a student do if they miss a live class day?
I think that would be the same. You mean if someone's absent? I'm assuming that's what they mean.
Right. Yeah.
It's similar to when you're absent. Last year, if you were absent, the students, if they're feeling well enough at home and they want to do some work, they have access to all of the online resources that we have available. They could read a story on Epic, or they could go on to Freckle or maybe Prodigy. So, they can still do some work at home if they're feeling up to it.
For children who are in both cohorts, what advice would you give parents as to what they should do at home? Should they alternate between reflex, Freckle, reading, writing?
So I'll take that one. I think that pretty similarly with students who are only in one cohort, our school day goes until 1:30, and that's the expectation for all the work, and we're not assigning homework per se. But I would say if you know that your child needs to work on reading, or if you've heard something in the past about math facts being a challenge, keep doing the Freckle at home or doing the reflex at home. I'm doing it, Mr. Barter. It's contagious.
I know.
So do the reflex at home to practice math facts. Also read with them. Reading with your child is, it's priceless. If you can sit down and have them read aloud to you, that works on fluency. You can ask them comprehension questions. Who are the characters? What's happening in the story? Retell what you just read. And that'll get at a whole lot of different reading skills that all of our third grade students need practice with at this point. So basically, I wouldn't say focus on any one thing. I would just say you know your child, and touch base with them. And if you have questions, ask your classroom teacher. Just say, is there anything, at conferences in a couple weeks, is there anything that we should really be focusing on to try to brush up on at home outside of the school day?
And to piggyback on that, I made my own children read to their grandparents who they don't get to see that often. And so you could have a routine of that, is have every Tuesday you read to Nana, and Nana loves it and your kid loves it too.
Will there be a student directory? So in terms of student directories, that's something that is managed by the PTO. More information to come on that from them. If we have a question on an assignment, is it better to post a question on Google Classroom as a private message or via email to the teacher?
I would say via email to the teacher. If it's posted to Google Classroom, we are with students all day. So we generally are not checking Google Classroom throughout the school day. So if it is something that you'd like us to try to check in on and see during the 8:20 to 2 o'clock time frame, I would say shoot an email.
Yeah, and a lot of the comments actually get buried in the stream in Google Classroom. Yeah. So for us to kind of go through all that, a quick email. And I know, we usually get the kids started. We come in and kids are off, especially with their writing time. I know when kids are doing their independent writing, I take 2 minutes, I check the email, get those kids started if there's any questions, and then kind of troubleshoot from there. So email is definitely the best way.
Are you expecting that the assignments, classroom printed schedules, and daily work should be able to be completed in the 8:30 to 2:30 remote school day?
I believe that's the goal, because, and I know in my classroom, I have a schedule on the folder. I think some of the other teachers may have done it too. There's kind of broken down with their special time, when they should be doing reading, writing, math, so that it's almost like we've taken our classroom schedule and kind of moved that to their virtual week when they're at home and given a suggested schedule of when they should be completing things, and even built in, I built in 2 10-minute breaks into their schedule. So along with special times. So yes.
But to that point, writing is different for every child. So some kid might be able to write an entire page and an entire assignment in that chunk of time, and some friends are not going to get there, and everyone is growing at different rates. So as long as your child is working, in general, we've been trying to give a little wiggle room, especially in the writing curriculum, our writing week, to give you like a little bit of time on, say, Friday to catch up if, say, a writing assignment took longer, because everyone is different. And some kids take a lot longer to do some of those writing pieces than others. And we have been teaching for a long time and totally know that. And they do the same thing in our classroom.
I think one thing as well is we're still trying to figure out the timing of the assignments and the workload that the kids have to manage on their remote weeks as well. We're trying to, I think one thing that with the Zern, especially, if that's going to extend their math block a little bit, definitely for them to kind of plow through those lessons. So again, we're kind of figuring that out as well, what the workload should be for the kids. But the expectation is they should be able to get those things done in that time frame.
And if you
I would say
that, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, if you find that your child is taking a lot longer than the school day, let your classroom teacher know, because that's the kind of feedback that we need, because we're not there with your child, right? We'd love to be, but we can't be. So let us know. And
also, if they're giving you a hard time, tell the teacher, because we'll speak to them when they come into class. Okay, at least I will. So. I asked my own kid's teacher if, like, my daughter was skipping her Zern assignments for like a week straight, and I finally was just like, as the dad, I told the teacher, I'm like, you can yell at her too. So definitely let us know if you need us to follow up, because I know it doesn't go smoothly. Like, 3 of us have young kids, and we're trying to it's just crazy. So we get it.
And a lot of times as a parent, we know this, I can admit this, I'm a parent and a teacher. So your kids oftentimes listen better to the teacher than they do to their own parents. It's much easier for a teacher to tell a kid something than it is for a parent too.
We'll be the bad guys and ladies.
Yep. I'm just noticing the time as well, and we have a 4th grade curriculum night shortly. So conferences will be held this year in November. Yes, we have early release days scheduled on November 4th and November 18th. So that is it November 3rd and November 18th?
3rd is election day.
Okay, thank you. 4th and 18th. So more information to come, and opportunity for you to sign up for those virtual conferences. How do you generally see the kids adapting to the new class routines? Do you see them coping well or experiencing some challenges?
They've been amazing.
They're doing awesome.
There are really no complaints. They're wearing their masks, and they seem really happy to be there. They really seem to appreciate school a lot more.
I appreciate how organized the materials have been on Google Classroom and in the take-home packets. Thank you. Do you plan to keep a portion of their remote assignments paper-based, or are you planning to move to all Google online assignments?
I can speak to that a little bit. We definitely see the importance of a balance at all. If at all possible, we will try to keep that balance of paper and online. My own children struggle with that, because everything they're doing right now in their district is online, and they have a lot of online fatigue. So it is very important to us, since we are living it with our own children, that we'll keep that balance going.
That may become harder if we go to full remote, but for the time being, that's where we're at.
And that's it. So thank you all for your time, for spending some time with us. And if anyone has missed this, this was recorded, so it will be shared out via your classroom teacher. So you can let any of your friends who missed it know that they will get it. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your amazing teaching. My kids are so happy to be in school. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Thanks for your tireless support. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Welcome.
The dream team. Thank you, 3rd grade teachers.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, parents, for all your support as well at home.
Thank you. You guys are a huge help, and we couldn't do it without all of you guys. So